Hi YouTube, my name is John and this is my channel The Intermancer. As I've been building my Gaia F genetic algorithm framework, I recently came to the point where I realized that I needed to make experiments a managed object and not just as a component, so the system can have multiple experiments so that I can look back at historical values. And I'm continuing that journey today. I've been thinking about the changes that I need to make next. And the biggest ones is that I need to make experiment and experiment status have repositories for those things. Up to this point, all of my repositories have been in-memory hash map based repositories, and I would like to continue that. But before I do so, I'm going to jump over to Claude and ask it if the Spring repository or Spring data package can allow me to declare a hash map based repository, because I know that the repository annotation will do a lot of find by this and find by that stuff if you just give it an interface, but I think most of that uses SQL on the back end, and so I doubt it does it for hash map. But let's go over and ask. Go to my projects. I think GaiaF is all up to date. UI phase 1. Is that where I'm at on GitLab? Okay. So Claude is up to date. I need to make experiment repository and an experiment status repository. I would like to continue to use in-memory hash map based repositories as I have been doing, but I would also like to use the Spring at repository annotation. Can that annotation be used for a hash map based repo? Oh, look at that. In-memory scored organism repository. Scored organism. Look at that. Get by ID. Okay. Thought it also did a whole bunch of find by fine by this and fine by that. Goodness. It gave me all the code for it. Huh. I don't remember what this optional return type do. So it's just semantic sugar around null pointer exceptions. It gets added into the stream stuff. All right. So let's do that. I'm just going to take the experiment repository stuff, and I could have done this inside of IntelliJ, probably just as easy, but tokens, right? I'm already paying for this Claude, and the IntelliJ account are different accounts. So I've got a bunch of tokens here I could use, so let's use them. It wanted me to create a repo package underneath experiment, but I haven't done that anywhere else, so I don't think, oh, organism repo. We'll go ahead and do it then. Experiment repository. In-memory experiment repository. Experiment doesn't have an ID. Let's change that. Okay, now then the experiment status. I meant to make that an interface. Whatever. Status. All right. So here's one of those things where I'm making changes directly in the code and not my context file. And honestly, I'm going to keep going this way, and then I'm going to ask the AI to examine my context file and suggest updates. Okay. Where's the constructor for this guy? Do I have Lombok? Have I been avoiding Lombok on this? I have. Okay. I'm kind of thinking I wanted to use Lombok just because I've been liking the builder pattern on it. But all my code's been generated. All right. So let's do that. Let's just keep having the code, the AI generate things. Okay. Which context file does this experimentation? Probably. Experiment status is currently a component. I need to change that and have it managed by the experiment controller. First, update experimentation, both in the description of experiment update the description of experiment status and the description of how experiment controller manages an experiment. Be sure to include the experiment status repository storing the experiment status in also. That's enough for now. Okay, so let's go ahead and apply these changes. Update experiment status.java. It is currently still using the component annotation. Okay, apply that. I need to confirm that in-memory experiment status repository. Okay, it's given repository, so that makes it a component. So now update experiment. That it uses on AutoWired experiment status and manages the life cycle of the experiment status. Oh, before I do that, update experiment status. So that it has a constructor and creates an ID. And it is instantiated. Okay, so just went the easy way. Update. What is the difference? Experiment controller. It manages the, actually, experiment and experiment status should be bidirectional. Update experimentation so that experiment has an a reference, an experiment status property. Be sure to update the description of experiment controller so that it explicitly associates an experiment and update also make sure that the endpoints for getting an experiment from the experiment controller all take an experiment ID. Now, a lot of times, if you were just vibe coding, you'd be giving these same directions just to the code base. Or even if you were using like Claude Code, I assume I haven't been using Claude Code. Honestly, a buddy of mine was telling me that he's been spending $400 a month on Claude Code, which is prohibitive to me. I'm not going to spend that kind of money on it when I'm spending approximately 1/10 of that, maybe $40 a month, and that's for both my Claude subscription, Claude Pro subscription, and my IntelliJ tokens that I supplement. And so I'm spending 1/10 of that, and I have to be more engaged, and I have to be sure to update my context document. So I'm kind of like uh, double entry accounting this stuff. I'm updating my context, and I'm updating my Java files. So it's kind of like double entry accounting. But I still think that based on what I've seen, and again, I'm admitting my ignorance because I haven't been using Claude Code because it seems super duper expensive. But I feel like I'm making good progress, and more importantly, I'm really maintaining a solid, coherent code base that I have a pretty good understanding of. Okay. Hmm. I don't know that I'm familiar with those endpoints already existing. Mm-hmm. All right, so let's take all these changes first. So it's adding the methods for experiment controller. But I think the formatting got off on the what? Get status. Huh. It seems to be having a hard time applying the snippet. I wonder if it's been having a similar hard time in other places and I just haven't noticed. But just pressing apply multiple times seems to have fixed that issue, which is interesting. Interesting stuff all around. All right, apply this. All right. I think there was a formatting error in your response. Most of the endpoint changes are not applicable. Are not in a code window, so the IDE is not allowing me to, not giving me an apply button. What changes do I still need to make to the endpoint descriptions for the experiment controller in experimentation.md? It's little stuff like this that just blows my mind, that people are doing this agentic coding and just letting these things run for hours sometimes to make a bunch of code changes. I know people complain about Claude Code doing a lot of unnecessary changes, but it did it again. Okay. Sure. I'll do it that way. It's saying, oh, I guess I'm just dumb. I think it's that example response in there. We'll see how this goes. Damn it. Lost all my formatting. All right, that seemed to work. All right, I'm going to go ahead and call it here because this video is long enough already and I have some things I need to do. When I come back, I will work on updating Experiment Controller to bring all these changes in, update the endpoints, and update the UI to use the new structure. But for now, we'll call it a day. Thank you for your time.